Pleasant morning to everybody. I hope everybody's good. Actually, it's not morning anymore, it's afternoon. I am Christ. I am Disciple. You watch my channel. You see the title of what we're going to be talking about today. Today, we're going to be talking about the creator. I'm going to do a review on the creator. It's going to be spoiler, non spoiler. We're also going to look at just the Beekeeper trailer. And we're also going to talk about some of the polls that were on Twitter and just what these polls are pointing to. And so various polls from various people. So we'll be doing that today. I hope everybody's good. Today it's 4:10 in the afternoon. It's not morning, it's afternoon for me. So I hope you guys have a good one as we go through this right now. Now, let me just say, first of all, that on this channel, you can donate to this channel via PayPal. It is in the chat section. You can also join here if you want to and chop it up with me as a guest. And the link is right there in the chat section. The format for this program goes like this. I start off with a piece of scripture, then I go into what I will be talking about today, which will be a non-spoiler review and also a spoiler review of The Creator, which I went and saw Tuesday this week. Then I'm going to talk about The Beekeeper, just my thoughts on it. And then we'll talk about the polls, the DC polls that we did with various subjects. Mostly subjects that have to do with, pertaining to restore the Snyderverse. That's why I would actually do that. And then the last thing, again, just about restoring the Snyderverse by putting Zack Snyder's Justice League in IMAX. So we're going to talk about all of these things right now. I'm going to get into the piece of scripture as of now, this minute. All right. So the piece of scripture comes from the book of John. And basically, it's pretty long, so I don't want to go into too much. I just want to summarize it for a minute. This guy, he was blind from birth. And back in the day, people believed that you got an affliction or illness because of your sins or your parents' sins or somebody. So the people were asking, who sinned, him or his parents? And Jesus said, nobody sinned here. This just happened so that the power of God could be seen. Things happen in life, in other words. And he said something that I thought was very pertinent to what we're talking about here, which is that all of us must quickly carry out the task assigned to us by the one who sent us, because there's little time left before the night falls and all work must come to an end. I really love that. So I think that's where I want to go with this. When they say work while the iron is hot, they say don't put off for tomorrow what you can do today. Don't procrastinate. We are all given an allotment of times. Many of us don't know when we're going to leave this planet. So utilize the time wisely that you have on this planet. Suffice it to say, in this story, Jesus didn't stay very long. I mean, after this miracle that happened, which happened on the Sabbath or Shabbat, they killed him not too long after, maybe a month or so after. He was dead. So what I'm saying is you have to be able to optimize and use your time wisely. In this case, Jesus went about using his time good. The other point I want to make, which I didn't actually cover in the scripture, but I'm going to make this point anyway, is that, like I said, they put Jesus to death for doing a good. It so happened that when he did the good, it was on a Shabbat. And Shabbat was a day when you didn't do any work. Not at all. So sometimes people will challenge the so-called status quo, and they'll do things that seem to be illegal to the status quo, but you have to understand the spirit of any law or any system and understand the principles behind it. And in this case, what Jesus was doing was a good. He was healing somebody. Is there ever a time when healing is bad? You get what I'm saying? So the spirit of the thing was the important thing. And a lot of people go by the letter of the law. And usually it's because we want to punish people. A lot of people like to have power so they can control people and punish them. All of us have that tendency within us as human nature. But that's not what Jesus uses power for. He uses power to liberate people, to free them, to empower them. So I just wanted to stress on those 2 points. The first one, do not put off today what you can do today. And the other thing being that just because you may do something that shakes up a system doesn't mean you're going to last that long. Jesus knew he was on a clock. So it's just those two things. Because a lot of times people think that good things are eternal. So that means if you do good, good things will happen to you. And it's true. That does happen. But also sometimes by doing good, even more evil comes to you. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that you'll be overcome by evil ultimately in the end, but it's just what it is. So I just wanted to put that out there for people. And it's also a context for what we're going to be talking about. So, okay, the first thing we're going to be talking about is the movie The Creator. What did I think about it? Overall, I'm going to give you the non-spoiler review for part first, and then I'm going to give you the spoiler review second. A lot of people hype up this movie. They said it was a great movie and everything. Me personally, I thought, thematically speaking, I'd seen this movie a number of times before. So if you have ever seen iRobot, if you've ever seen The Matrix, if you've ever seen, there's so many, AI. I don't know if you guys ever saw AI, but that's a very interesting introductory movie. And all of these movies have something in common, right? The lead protagonist is artificial intelligence, okay? Or one of the lead protagonists or antagonists. So in the case of The Matrix, the story some of the elements of that story are in The Creator. I did like, though, even though the story, the movie never brought anything new to me. Nothing that challenged me, nothing that really transformed me. I didn't think of it as a transformative movie. Of course, maybe other people who haven't seen those other movies I just spoke about might see it as transformative. I didn't see it as transformative. It was, what I liked about it was how they used the special effects, the VFX in this movie, so that it simulated a reality. You felt like you were in this reality. You felt like this reality already happened. And a lot of the things that we saw on that, and even the NORAD and so on, felt very real world. But the story itself, I'll be honest with you, I thought it was very simplistic, straightforward. I don't think that was the strong point of this movie. Its story wasn't very strong, in my opinion. You kind of knew, and the movie let you know in advance what was the whole issue in the story. So I thought that the story was pretty straightforward. I think the part of the story that was really, I think, emotional, and I think had you invested in it, was the relationship between the main protagonist and Joshua and I believe her name was, what's her name? Let's see. I can't even remember her name. The main protagonist. I think the relationship between those two, because to me, this movie was more of a romance story than it was sci-fi or anything else. It seemed to be a romance story. And yes, the lead character does go through some transformations, but ultimately in the end, it's Joshua and Maya, right? Joshua and Maya are two of the major characters in this story, even though I'm not going to give you spoilers, but just suffice it to say, those are two of the main characters in the story. The other major character in the story, the major protagonist in the story, is Alfie. But Joshua and Maya are two very key. The story is told from Joshua's perspective and his love for Maya. All right. To me, it's more of a romance story than it's anything else. If you've seen a Humphrey Bogart film, for example, where, a romantic Humphrey Bogart film, you'll get what I'm saying. Now, with respect to what the story is about and so on, I'll have to go into the spoiler review, but suffice it to say this. The concept wasn't new to me. What the movie actually said and its punchlines were not new to me. In fact, sometimes it was overly simple. And I was a little bit disappointed about that. The movie attempted humor a couple times. And the humor for me, it reminded me of Star Wars in that respect, in that the humor for me didn't land. It was a bit corny, in my opinion. I got what was happening, but I didn't think they needed to make it humorous. They could have just kept the tone. To me, this movie had a particular tone to it, and then it would be there would be these deviance from the tone, and you'd be like, "What's going on here?" Because you didn't feel like that part of the movie fit into the movie. And I truly believe it's the studio that probably, you know, said, you need to have this thing funny. It's a very heavy movie. You need to have some fun in this movie. And so he, they gave him notes and he had to do the notes. But Garth Evans did a great job with this movie in terms of visually, in terms of, the acting in this movie was great for what the actors had to do. It was great. They really created a weight because at the end of the movie, I was in tears. My eyes were tearing up. I didn't cry. No tears came out of my eye, but it did emotionally because of the tension within it. But the tension was broken at times by I had to really suspend my belief of it in certain parts of the movie. But that is besides the point. The point is that without going into the spoiler part of the movie, this movie was a solid movie in the sense of this. The movie took itself seriously. The movie had stakes. You felt the stakes in the movie. You never felt like one of the main protagonists would die. You didn't think that, right? So that was kind of a downside somewhat. And then at certain points, actually, let me revise that. You did think that the main protagonist might die in the movie. In fact, twice in the movie, you would think that. Not Joshua, but Alfie. You thought Alfie was going to die in the movie. At a certain point, you thought so, and then afterwards you said, "Nah," right? Now, you didn't think that Joshua would die in the movie. You really didn't. I never got that feeling, But that's what I think made the movie a little bit better than I thought I was going to receive it. Now, let me just say, this is just my perspective because I've seen so many of these kinds of movies, literally, story-wise, etc. For me, it didn't bring anything new to the table. However, I must say that to know that this movie only took $80 million to make this movie it has to be something that is an accomplishment of some kind. You know what I mean? I even think of Alita Battle Angel, and this movie's kind of like that. And not really, it's not anything like Alita Battle Angel, but again, the concept of this AI and this special AI and so on is, interesting. All right, so what is the basic concept of this movie? I don't think this is a spoiler or anything. This movie is basically this. Mankind and humanity are trying to get rid of artificial intelligence in the world because something bad happened. And so they're going on an all-out war on AI. That's the long and short of it. And at the beginning of the movie, that is established. Okay? So that's what the movie's about. It's about AI. It's about, again, whether, things that have artificial intelligence are alive, are they real, are they dying, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the things in the movie. Let's go into the spoiler review. So the spoiler review of The Creator is going to be a lot more in depth, and I'm going to start from the very beginning and work my way to the end. First of all, the story of The Creator is broken up into 4 parts. It's the creator, then it goes to the child, then it goes to the mother, and then it goes to, I can't remember what the last one is. All right. The movie's broken up into chapters. Literally, there's a title. It kind of reminds me of Zack Snyder's Justice League in that respect. And then this movie, from the get-go, without any nuance, it doesn't really have much nuance to it, but emotionally, it has great nuance. Emotionally, the one thing about this movie I can say is very strong emotional. It's a quite an emotional movie. Reminds me a bit of a Walt Disney film in a way, because it's very romantic and the music's very romantic for most of the point. And That's why I said the movie's more of a romance than anything else. But this movie begins by showing, it shows a catalog of AI and its development and how people were able to make AI in the image and likeness of a person called a synth. And they look very lifelike. First the AI was learning to walk and all of these kinds of things. And one of the things initially, almost immediately, that got my attention about this movie was that they were sort of encapsulating AI into forms. There were these synths that would help people, and help mankind, and they were doing surgeries and all of these things. And it immediately, the way how they were picturing AI is only in form. And to me, that was the first thing that I noticed. And I was like, okay, AI is not just form. AI, for example, artificial intelligence is what runs their programs that run and learn. There's an AI that's using my camera right now. My camera's run by AI. So when this big bomb exploded in LA, right? It was a huge bomb. And they said the AI blew up LA, turned against mankind and blew up LA, which reminds me of the Animatrix part of things. Mankind decided to preserve their life. They're going to have to wage all-out war on AI. And there was this new Asian colony that still was not aligning with mankind, and they were harboring AI, and they decided they had to tactically destroy these colonies to be able to get rid of AI. Now that, quite frankly, I'm going to be as honest as I can with you guys. To me, that's way too simplistic. AI is used for just about any and everything. And AI is not limited to one singularity or one individual, like a synth or whatever. AI coordinates. It's a networking, right? So that initially, for human beings to even try to take down AI, they'll have to use AI to take down AI, which I just don't see that happening. Once you started with AI, it's kind of hard to turn back. So that in and of itself, that's why I said I had to suspend my belief a little bit with this movie and keep on going with the story. Because one of the biggest, if you want to call it a plot hole, I call it a plot hole. One of the biggest plot holes in this movie is that it assumes that AI is only with the synths and machines, and that AI can't be aware of all the countermeasures that humanity could use. I don't see that happening. So that was the first thing, and that kind of had me like, what? Anyways, and I know I rolled back in 2000, I think it was 2002 was like that, but I just feel like we're way ahead of that now. We know AI has to do with networks, and they learn, and these programs are learning by networks and so on, so it's way different now. And I thought they would have been able to encompass that. So I realized it was kind of a rehash of older concepts and understandings of AI. Anyways, humanity. So this guy, Joshua was a guy that he was part of the human teams sent in New Asia, gather intel, and find out where something called the Nirmata, which is what New Asia was resisting the rest of the world, so he had to find the Nirmata, which was the thing that was making all the sense, and he had to destroy it. And the United States of America had something called the USS Nomad, and the Nomad, it would track way up in the sky, like up in space, and it would be able to locate and destroy specific places where they believed that AI, there were major centers for AI. And it so happened that Joshua was undercover. His name was Joshua Taylor. He was undercover, and he ended up marrying this young lady named Maya. He got close to her because he was trying to get close to her to find out, because Maya had some sort of link to Nirmata. And in the story, pretty much, uh, Maya finds out that Josh was an undercover operator for the United States and that he didn't consider AI and machines as human or as having feelings or life, but he loved Maya and he was having a child with her. And when she found out she had been betrayed, she tried to get back with the synth people, which had raised her, as we learned retroactively in the story. And Nomad throws down a bomb at that point in time, obliterates everybody and kills everybody. And Joshua loses his arm. So he ends up back in the United States of America, being reassimilated back into the system. He's down in Ground Zero, trying to clean up the Ground Zero event where the nuke happened. And he's living his life. He's kind of depressed, destroying AI, robots, and synths. And he's approached by the U.S. operatives. He loses his arm. He's depressed because he loses a lady who he loved, and he doesn't want to hear anything from them, but they say that she's alive. So he goes back looking for her because of that. That's his incentive to go back to this whole thing, is because he's in search for her, and you get flashbacks of his, many occasions when he's with her, with the baby and everything, and the good life that they had together. And he's constantly trying to find her. So he's out there with the team. They go in. They get a tip that Nirmata is a certain place, and they go in and they infiltrate. He gets to what is supposed to be the Nirmata thing, or the great weapon that they were supposed to have, and it turns out to be this child synth. And the child synth is different to any other synth out there. The child synth is one that is able to control things without ever having to plug into them. But it's not fully developed. It was supposed to be the weapon that would take down the Nomad in space, but the child synth is not fully developed. And then we have some interactions with him and the child synth. The child synth is learning about what off is. Off is like if somebody's dead, he just, permanently turned off one of the devotees. When devotees realized it was the child synth programming and everything, blew up. He shot the devotee and destroyed him and called him off. And the child synth was like, off? Because the child synth was accumulating information from a TVs or everything. You turn on TVs and whatever. Anyway, the long and short of it is he called the child synth Alfie. He invited Alfie to come with him. The New Asian police and military came down to get them, but they escaped somehow, some way. Don't ask me how they did that. Because they're driving off in a car. Yes, some of the police, which are all they're all robots as well, with AI. They blew up the robots, and they got out of the car, but whatever. So one of the people on the team with Joshua, he died. We were able to extract from his brain his memories, slide it into, even though he's dead, slide it into a synth, and the synth is able to, express information that was necessary. So the chief lady who came with Joshua, I'm giving this in detail, but that's all right. The chief lady who came with Joshua, she, her two sons died as a result of AI. All right. So, in the war. So she has she has a full investment in this. But Joshua goes off with Alfie to try and find Maya. And he's done with the lady. He's not even trying to be in contact with the head honcho. So she realizes that he's kind of defected and took off. So she's now going after him and Alfie. And they're putting up roadblocks and stuff. And the long and short of it is that Alfie turns out to be a copy of what he and Maya's child would have been. Maya turns out to be the Nirmata. Her father was also a Nirmata. She was human. Her father was human. But her father invented the synths and the AI for the synths in Asia, and she was the daughter, and the synths took care of her, like if she was family. She was the inspiration for making a copy of her daughter. Now, the Nomada itself, I believe, was the Nomad. I don't think the Nomad ship itself was the Nomada. Why do we know that? Because if you go, when Alfie's on the Nomad itself, the same ship that's destroying all these AI, she saw copies. Alfie, by the way, is a female. She saw copies of her mother, which was Maya, the mother. The mother, there was many, many copies of her. So she pulled out one of them. And long and short version of it is that Maya, who's actually a human being, she died. Now, why it is after this explosion, her whole body's intact and she's in a coma, I don't know, but whatever. See, these are things, again, I suspend my belief about. But she was fully intact and everything, and she was looking like Snow White. And anyway, he took out the life support and he moved the chip from her. There's a chip that every human has, or some kind of thing like that. They pulled the chip out anyway, whatever. So they pulled it out, and just like how the lady pulled out the chip from the dying soldier and put it into the synth, he pulled out the chip. So the kid pulled out the chip he pulled out the chip from Maya, and he kept it. In the end, they got captured by the lady. The lady died, but they still got captured. They were carried back to the United States of America. Alfie could not be turned off. Now, before this, when he was, it's a long story, but the short version of it is that he ended up in the camp, Alfie's camp, with Alfie's people. The head guy of Alfie's people was there to protect Alfie, explained to him some of it, was supposed to kill him, but at that moment something happened, so he was distracted. So when he came back, Alfie had freed him. In the night, he came through when the man was trying to protect Alfie, and he paused the guy's programming. So the guy was on standby. He didn't kill him. He didn't switch him off, but he paused him. And then he told Alfie he was on standby. So when he got captured, when he and Alfie got captured, and they needed him to go to Alfie and destroy Alfie, because Alfie would not allow anybody to come in and destroy her, he told Alfie standby, and he shut EMP, electromagnetic pulse at Alfie, but it was to keep Alfie on standby. So Alfie revived, they escaped, they went onto a plane, they went up into Nomad, the big ship. They went up into Nomad, and they were planning to bomb Nomad, destroy Nomad, and then come down. Because once they destroy Nomad, then it can't locate. And it was just this one technology. They didn't have a whole bunch of it. It was a lot of money was put into Nomad. So the Nomad, he went up into Nomad. Now here's the thing. When they went up into Nomad, Alfie had to turn off Nomad. So Alfie went to the central area of Nomad and disabled everything. Meanwhile, he was on the outside putting explosives on the outside of Nomad. And when the head of the U.S. military realized that, he started deploying a whole set of bombs and missile bombs and stuff, rocket bombs, to the different areas where they suspected these people had synths and AI, to destroy the installations of AI and stuff like that. And what happened was Alfie was able to turn off NORAD, so the guidance missiles weren't landing where they were supposed to go and detonating. And while that was happening, Joshua was loading all the missiles and stuff. And so when he got back into the Nomad proper, because he was in a spacesuit thing, and it's a long story about that. But the truth of this part, he got back into Nomad, and when he got back into Nomad, here's the thing that happened. He and Alpha were supposed to escape in an escape pod, but the head of the military saw what was happening, and so he was able to basically disable the escaping of Joshua, and only one of them could have escaped in the pod, and it ended up being Alfie. Joshua was sealed in with the tentacle thing, and even when the tentacle, he was able to destroy the tentacle thing. Even when he was able to destroy that, He was sealed onto the ship. He couldn't go with Alfie. So Alfie escaped. He remained on the ship. But before Alfie escaped, Alfie, when she was moving around, she was able to see copies of Maya on the ship. There were all these synths on the ship, and there was copies of Maya's on the ship. And in the center of the ship, when we were looking, there's like this field of plants being grown because the genetic engineering stuff is going on the ship. And in that field, you were seeing, I think, people, but they were synth people. It was so weird. So that's the little twist to the story. These synth people on the ship. And the thing about it is that Alfie sees one of these synths, but it's not activated or anything. So she goes and pulls the synth, and she goes out to the center of the ship, and she takes, because Joshua had given her this little stick thing. And so the data from Maya was put into the synth. So when Joshua was stranded on the ship, and there's a lot of callbacks to him and Maya, Maya's motivation is Maya. I didn't say all of that. But when Joshua gets trapped on the ship, he heads to that field with all these plants and stuff, and he sees Maya there because there's all these copies of Maya, right, on the ship. Don't ask me why. So in the end, he and her are united before the whole ship blows up, and he gets his last look at her because he was so desiring to. And that's why I said it's a romantic tragedy. It's kind of like Hamlet and Juliet. Not Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet. It's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet story because it tragically ends. He and Maya, they die up in the ship, or at least a copy of Maya. And Alfie escapes. Alfie reaches down on the ground. Alfie's crying and everything, but Alfie starts to rejoice because now the synths are kind of free to live their life how they want, not be hunted and destroyed by the threat of Nomad, which is no more. So that's kind of the story. Now, I spelled it out in great detail. I could have just said it in one sentence, but I didn't. The point I'm saying is there's certain incredulous things in the story that make no sense, right? For example, like I said before, Maya being fully intact after that explosion, and a guy who was much further away from the explosion, and Joshua, his whole arm was blown off, okay? The movie was graphic, which was great, even though most of the graphic destruction was the synths. But the whole point behind the movie was to show you that these synths you could consider them sort of like life. They were alive. The other thing about the movie that I liked about it was that the movie, even though it was expressly expressed, like nothing was nuanced, like I said before. Joshua said, you're not alive, you're not real, right? So, and he's tried to convince the lady when he was doing the Ground Zero stuff and he destroyed the robot. He was trying to explain to her, turn it off, man. It's not alive, right? But he began to appreciate it when I didn't mention this part of the story, but his major, the guy who used to be in charge of him, who gave him a ring to give to Maya to track her, he had a synth, a relationship with a synth. And when that synth died, you could see how devastated he was. And eventually he died. He got killed as well by synths that came through to get Alfie and to get Joshua. Ultimately, in the end of the story, though, Joshua and Alfie, like I said before, I didn't expect Joshua to die at the end of the story, but it was a very touching moment, and they did it very, very well. Certain parts of the story, like for humor or for, like I said before, sometimes suspending your belief sort of kind of took away from the story. Is this a story, like I said before, that I had never seen before? Absolutely not. I've seen this a couple times, right? This is not a unique story. But the cool thing about it, like I said before, to people, is even though this movie, I think this movie is making a lot of money right now in cinemas, I'll say this, okay? What I like about this movie is the acting was really good. They even though I knew kind of where the story was going for most of the part, the interesting part of the story, of course, is that the Nomad that they destroyed seemed to be also the place where sort of the inception. I think the last version was the architect. I think that was the last thing was the architect. the actual thing that had made AI was on the Nomad, and to see that humanity was trying to wipe out the sense in AI using the Nomad was very interesting. Um, so I thought that, what is the creator? So the creator, what makes this story interesting is the creator is a combination of different things. They were striving towards these synths becoming human or more like human, and it seems as though they kind of succeeded at it. Now, there's a couple of points. There's certain synths, like the Tibetan monk synths, for example, they couldn't harm human life. But you had other synths that could harm human life. And like I said before, Joshua almost got nuked out by the general synth, um, who was part of resistance, but they weren't part of the police. So there are different kinds of synths, and that's a whole other story for that. So, but suffice it to say that Alfie's still alive, so the story can go on. There are a lot of loops in the story. I'll explain what I mean. Like, for instance, Joshua's both parents died and they went to heaven. You know, they talked about the concept of heaven and not going to heaven. And it's interesting him explaining that concept to Alfie. Uh, so, you know, he's like in heaven. And remember, he pointed up to the Nomad thing. So Alfie was like, that's a terrible place to go. But then, you know, so Alfie is still alive at the end of the movie. We are probably pretty sure that Josh was dead. All right. But the fact that the Nomad was the center where AI kind of begun, or suggested that this AI thing, what constructed Alfie, actually came from Nomad. And that there were copies of Maya, who, you know, was a human, but the copies are synths, is interesting. The fact that Alfie had all these special abilities and was locked up in this vault thing is also interesting. So there's just a lot that I still have some questions at the end of the movie. Did I enjoy the movie? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And like I said before, I teared up at the end, especially that moment between Joshua and Alfie. You know, Joshua cannot meet Alfie, can't do anything. He tells Alfie he loves him and loves her, and Alfie says she loves him because Alfie is like his daughter that he never had, right? He was supposed to have a child, but the child died with Maya, you know. So, of course, you have to suspend your belief on Maya not being blown to bits, and you're seeing this person perfectly, you know, she's still in the gown and everything. So there's certain things about this movie that are, you suspend your belief, and that's the problem with this movie. It's not airtight. You know, it's portraying this realism, but it's not airtight realistic. Like, there's these huge plot holes that kind of, you're like, huh. And then there's the moments with the jokes that I really didn't enjoy. But it was again, the tone of the movie overall was, you know, a serious tone. It was very emotional movie, so you felt a lot of angst about the characters. It finished really well. Um, and you know, I don't think it might. I don't know how it will do in the box office. I don't know. Was I tremendously impressed with this movie? No. I thought it was okay. A lot of people are hyping it up more, I think, than it deserves to be hyped up. But it's okay. It's cool. You know, people will do that. So that's my review of The Creator. Cinematically speaking, the cinematography is great. If you've never seen iRobot or The Matrix or 100,000 other AI or any of those kinds of movies, this movie will resonate. You might find it revolutionary even if you have never seen those kinds of things. I have, so that it doesn't impress me like that. My thoughts on the Beekeeper trailers, pretty much the same thing, unless David Ayers is making a point to, it's like, go deeper with this movie somehow. It just looks like an action flick, typical Jason Statham action flick. It doesn't feel that deep. In fact, it reminds me kind of like what the Suicide Squad secondary trailers were like. Now, I don't know if David Ayer will go deeper with the Beekeeper, if they made him, you know, did him the same way like how they did him with Suicide Squad, and he was going for something deeper, and we're going to get some superficial, you know, very small scaling storyline. I don't know what, but the Beekeeper doesn't quite impress me at all. So The Beekeeper trailer, for those who don't know, it's basically this guy who he's taking care of bees uh, for this lady. This lady allowed him to be on the land. She's treating him well, and she dies. She maybe commits suicide or something because um, bad some bad connection on a thing, and they probably robbed all the money. He goes berserko mad and starts taking out different people, and it seems like he gets deeper and deeper into it, and he's righting wrongs and all that kind of stuff. And they think he's just a beekeeper, but he's really some tremendous undercover Navy SEAL, CIA, FBI, all the whole 9 yards. This guy's bad, 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 bad. Kind of like John Wick movie. So I don't think it's I don't think it's much to the Beekeeper than that, And I kind of disappointing because even what was it called? Yes, it's coming to me. I'll tell you what the movie Bright. The movie Bright to me had a lot more to it. It's about these different kinds of people, the elves, and it's kind of like talking about gangs and race and that kind of thing. I don't know what Bright will bring to the table. If David Ayer will bring some sort of nuance to it, something more than just action. If it's just action, like The Meg or whatever, then. But if he does bring some other element, what I liked about Bright was that Bright was really speaking on, race relations and acceptance and that kind of thing. This movie, I don't know what it's speaking on. If this is something deep, like I said before, you notice what I'm saying. Speaking on, like if a movie has something to say, it's better than when it doesn't have anything to say. Like for example, with the creator, what the creator is basically saying is we and AI can coexist, and we should try to peacefully coexist with AI and try to find a way to understand that AI may be an intelligence where it's aware of itself. So it's kind of like that statement, and to me, it's a little bit of propaganda in that AI can be good. Because it's replacing people's jobs, all kinds of things going on with AI right now. It's very controversial, when you talk about AI. And so it could be propaganda just to get people on the side of AI and say, look how good it could be for you, and you should trust AI, that kind of craziness. But I want to say, though, it is, like I said before, kind of a romantic movie. It reminds me of Walt Disney, or it reminds me of a Humphrey Bogart movie, And with the Beekeeper, again, I'm not really like people are being stoked about the Beekeeper and blah blah blah. I'm let me tell you the movies I'm stoked about. In fact, I can tell you right now. So Ridley Scott's Napoleon. I want to see. I know the history of Napoleon Bonaparte. I know about the French Revolution. I know about those things, right? What I want to know though is because for a time Napoleon Bonaparte was seen as a great hero, and then he kind of turned, and then things kind of worked against him, and then so I want to see what it is. I know the general history of the thing, but I would like to see how he personalizes, how they give you stuff that probably you don't know about. It's just like with Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm not expecting them to go exactly to that storyline. I know what Killers of the Flower Moon was. I know what the Osaka murders were about. So I already did my homework on that. So when I go into the theater, I'm expecting more of a human experience. I'm expecting to experience something, and maybe they say something in that movie. Because to me, movies talk. Stories talk. Like even this story, the creator said something. It was talking. It was saying something to me, and I was like, okay, I may not have left the theater more enlightened, but emotionally, it had an impact on me. You see what I'm saying? Because movies are supposed to touch you, and the creator did touch me. It did touch me. I'll give you that. Even though I knew I kind of knew the story, and I kind of understood what was going on, and there was no necessarily any nuance to it. They told you what was happening. But what I liked about it was, at least emotionally, you left feeling like, we need to understand that AI, can be its own entity, and we need to treat it maybe like that in the future if we are to have some sort of coexistence in this world. And of course, the guy was cyborg and all kinds of stuff. And I like that also they were doing a practice, like the nomad thing, which is a real thing, and a nomad exists. Not necessarily the nomad that they had, but and they came from a much more grounded, practical, possible future we would have with AI, because they're trying to make the facial arrangements of AI so more human and more recognizable. And then again, to see that certain AI, their programming is never to go against humanity and kill humanity. That's pretty cool to see there inside of that movie. So there's all those kinds of things that I think are cool about um, the movie. And of course, visually it was awesome. And there's a lot about the movie I left out, but I leave that for you guys to enjoy if you decide to go and see it. People are talking about, preservation of cinema. I want to say this. Yes, God Edmonds did do a cinematic that felt like cinema. It felt like cinema. It was simplistic though. It wasn't as well. Actually, let me say this, because let me not say it's simplistic, because there's certain parts of it that was not as simplistic as I'm making it out to be. I think one of the things God Evans tried to do was show us, instead of trying to explain to us, like what is alive and what is not. The communication language between him and Alfie, Joshua and Alfie, the dialogue about off and standby and that kind of thing, and how Alfie was able to answer him back. I think that was all great stuff as well. So, it was put in a simple package, but actually it was kind of loaded. So I wouldn't say it was simplistic, but I would say it was very, it led you to the next thing, led you to the next thing, led you to the next thing, So that's what I remember with the creator. With respect to Beekeeper, I'm not really impressed with the trailer. I think it's an action flick like John Wick. If you like John Wick and those kinds of things, I guess that'll be for you. Even though, mind you, I do, in my list of movies, I'm looking forward to a John Woo thing. And again, it's just straightforward. Guy with his family, drive-by shooting, kills a kid, so he decides to take out all the people in the mob or whatever. And he seems to be a known killer, and his wife is going to help him or whatever. So I don't know. And that movie is called, what is it called? So hold on, I'm gonna tell you. Let me tell you what it's called. Second. Let me go on X. Trying to remember where I saw it. Yeah. Oh yeah, my best. Hold on a second. I'm gonna get this real quick. I'm thinking of becoming a blue check mark, but I don't know if I really. Okay, so the movie's called Silent Night. It's going to come out December 1st. I don't know. It's an action movie, just like The Beekeeper is an action movie. There's a lot of violent movies this year. But Killers of the Flower Moon, I'm hoping that Scorsese can bring something, to the table that helps you to be introspective and think about things. Yeah. So my anticipated movies for this year are Killers of the Flower Moon, Zack Snyder's Justice League, November the 17th, Killers of the Flower Moon, October 20th, Napoleon, November 22nd, Rebel Moon, December 22nd. I also haven't seen A Heart of Stone with Gal Gadot, Knock at the Cabin, which has really intrigued me, Oppenheimer, and Sound of Freedom. I haven't seen that. And also I haven't seen Saint of a Second Chance, which is by Stampede Ventures. And I'm looking forward to seeing Find Your Purpose, which is again by Angels Angel Studios. And it has to do with, that's coming out October the 13th. So the 13th of this month, that will be coming out. Saint of Second Chance, I think that came out already in September. So there's those movies I do want to see. Knock at the Cabin, of course, is it was done by M. Night Shyamalan, and I can't remember his name, but the gentleman who did Army of the Dead, one of the key protagonists. He was a wrestler. In Guardians of the Galaxy was in that. I just can't remember his name right now. He wanted to play Bane, and he also wants to play in Gears of War, but I just can't remember his name. It's gonna come to me. But he He's in that. It's an interesting premise, so I'm really interested in how they resolve that. Yeah, let's go into the last thing I have to do here, which is the recent polls. And all of these polls say something. That's why I'm doing these polls. So the first poll I want to talk about is one from way back. Way back in the time, right? Way back in the time. And this was by Ed Boon, who is, of course, the creator of Mortal Kombat. And he asked the question, what is your jam, right? Is it Zack Snyder's Justice League? Or is it Endgame and Infinity War? And guess what? Who won that? I don't know. You can see this? I think you can. Yeah, you can see that. Zack Snyder's Justice League won by 55% to 45%. So Infinity War and Avengers Endgame came second. And the amount of votes was 56,244 votes. This came out March of this year, showing you that people actually found Zack Snyder's Justice League to be a greater jam of the Mortal Kombat fans, because these are all Mortal Kombat fans, than Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm going to leave some, I want you guys to see some of the comments here. '90s Man says the winner is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Zack Snyder's Justice League, of course. You got a whole bunch of people saying Zack Snyder's Justice League up in here. Crazy. A lot of people. So half of those people, more than this is 56,000 people voted. And of those 56,000, some 30,000 plus, voted for Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's incredible. Well, not 50-something thousand plus. Let's see. Half of that would have been what? 56. Half of 56 is what? 28,000. So 55%. Yeah. About 30,000 people, maybe 31,000 people of those 56,000 people voted for Zack Snyder. That's incredible. That's incredible. You know what I'm saying? So this was another poll. So the first poll, like I said before, by Mortal Kombat guy. This second poll happened the 26th of August. And it's the poll here. I want you to see it, so it's nice and big. What the fuck? So there's the poll right there, nice and big. And the poll says this. It says, if WBD releases the Snyder Cut in IMAX, would you go see it? Zack Snyder Justice League in IMAX. And 1,572 people voted. Now, those people, 89% of them said, yes, I'd go see it. 89%. That's crazy. It's almost 90%. So that's over 1,000 people out of 1,572 people said they'd go see it. All right. Show you another poll. I'm going for numbers that are pretty big. I'm not looking for small numbers. Well, this poll is kind of similar to the other one. It says, should Warner Brother Pictures, that's the one on top there, should Warner Brother Pictures put Zack Snyder's Justice League in IMAX? And a whooping 98% said, yes, please do. 2% said, no, Zack is done with DC. And the amount of people that did this was only 62 votes, but nonetheless, it is interesting, to say the least. Those numbers are kind of small. I'm looking for over 1,000, thereabouts. But still, it's interesting that people would say, okay, people wanted to see it in IMAX. People, a lot of people voted for it over Infinity War and Endgame of the Mortal Kombat. A lot of people. And then people are saying they would go see it, and they'd go see it in IMAX if it gets released. So here's another poll. This poll is saying, which one of the following would you most want to see this year? These are the upcoming movies. I inserted Zack Snyder's Justice League in there. Wonka, Zack Snyder's Justice League. This is the movie itself. Aquaman 2, in the cinemas, by the way, or The Color Purple. So Wonka, as you can see here, Wonka. Hold on a second. I'm trying to get it to line up properly. Okay. Wonka is 5%. Zack Snyder's Justice League, 78%. Aquaman 2, 12%. And The Color Purple. Sorry, Aquaman 2, 12%. And The Color Purple, 2%. And I think this, yep, that's the final results for that poll. 1,106 people voted. So 700 and something people picked Zack Snyder's Justice League in that poll, which is pretty impressive. This is another poll, and this poll's almost wrapped up. I couldn't get the poll to go any further. I think that Twitter's messing with me and my numbers and stuff, and it's really sad. But anyways, because my poll has not increased, and my poll should increase, but it's not increasing. So I don't know what's going on with my poll. I don't know if people stopped voting or what. I doubt that. So something they're messing. I think Twitter's messing with my stuff now. But nonetheless, it says here, you tell me which you always wanted to see since your childhood as a DC fan in live action. Darkseid versus the Justice League, Superman Legacy, or Creature Commandos. Now, clearly, the pinnacle of DC is Darkseid versus the Justice League. We know this. So if you see people saying Superman Legacy or Creature Commandos, you got to ask yourself what's going on there. And some people, 17% said Superman Legacy. Like, we got so many Superman films, man. Are you crazy? Lost your damn mind? So we knew that was the gun supporters that were saying that. But obviously, blowing it out the water for DC fans, 83% voted for Darkseid versus the Justice League. This is a no-brainer. That was a no-brainer. But I said I'd put it out there for data. We got, I think, 2 more polls, or 3. Sammy, who's known as the Snyder Queen, she put up, what is the best Zack Snyder DC movie? Is it Watchmen, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, or Zack Snyder's Justice League? And most people voted for Batman v Superman. I personally voted for Zack Snyder's Justice League. The winner was Batman v Superman by 36%. 32% of 1,605 votes voted for Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then you had Man of Steel and then Watchmen. Okay. So we got some other polls in progress. One of these polls has 172 votes. The others are below 100. This one's asked, which one are you most excited to see? Zack Snyder Justice League sequel, a Batman movie, a Superman movie, or Peacemaker movie? And of course, Zack Snyder Justice League won out. The Justice League is always greater than Batman or Superman by individual name, so that wasn't surprising. This is the final poll. This is still in progress. This is only for Snyder fans. Which Which is your number one desire when we restore the Snyderverse? Is it Zack Snyder Justice League sequels, Batfleck movie, a Superman movie, or the Air Cut? And so far, the majority of fans say the Zack Snyder Justice League sequels. So it's very clear, and it should be very clear to Warner Brothers Pictures, that the majority of, whether it's Snyder fans or whoever they may be, the majority of fans actually think very positively about Zack Snyder's Justice League, which leads me to, I think that Zack Snyder Justice League in IMAX, November the 17th, is a great way to restore the Snyderverse, to start off restoring the Snyderverse. And I think that Warner Bros. Would be doing a complete and utter disservice to themselves and to the fandom and to DC fans in general if they don't continue this story that's already been let out there. So it's really in their best interest to restore the Snyderverse. From the different polls that I put out there, we realize they need to really pivot back. Actually, there's a poll I'm doing actually, where we're looking to see if Warner Brothers should do a reboot or if they should have pivoted back to the original Snyderverse, the early films, and kept that tone and stuff. And again, the majority of people, at least Snyder fans, believe that. So the question really is, to Warner Brothers Pictures, do they want to waste a host of time and money pursuing something that really the majority of DC fans or the majority of the general audience that's interested in DC at all would want to see? Are you going to invest all your money and effort into something that people really don't care to see? Okay, that's what you got to ask yourself, because who are you going to actually bring on board? You're not bringing on board Marvel fans. There are Marvel fans that are looking at some of the DC stuff, but when they see what you're offering compared to what their first perception of DC is with the Zack Snyder stuff, they're not going to go see it. They'll like to jump in standards. All right. And just for the record again, I don't know if I have it here. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. I may not have it on Twitter, but I certainly might have it here. I do. Well, let me show you the history of DC when it comes to DC movies. Maybe it's on the other one. Sure. Maybe it's in good art. Maybe. So, yep. So when you're talking about really great DC movies, okay, great DC movies. All right, let's talk about the great DC movies. Superman 1978 is a great DC movie, right? Batman 1989, Batman Returns, Constantine. Listen to the movies, man. Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, Watchmen, The Dark Knight Rises, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman, Joker, V for Vendetta, right? Road to Perdition. Road to Perdition won an Academy Award. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, A History of Violence, Red 1 and 2. That's the kind of culture and history that DC has. These are the successful movies I'm talking about. Okay, these movies are not laugh-a-thons. Okay, they're not laugh-a-thons. DC's not known for laugh-a-thons. I just told you some of the present, current, and future DC movies. They're not known for laugh-a-thons. So why are you trying to put, Mortal Kombat is a Warner Brothers Pictures company, right? And they bought it out. So you look at the really good Mortal Kombat movies, the ones that actually made money, serious movies. Because DC takes itself seriously. They don't take itself a clown. So yeah, okay, Aquaman made success because people wanted the Snyder Cut, right? But Aquaman is not going to be successful otherwise. So You, as I was going to show in the sequel's going to be a dud, and the sequel's only going to be a dud because of this. They don't have staying power, right? The only DCEU sequel that made money and did better than the first movie and the spinoff was uh, Batman v Superman, and then Suicide Squad. Those, so from Man of Steel sequel, Batman v Superman did more money than Man of Steel, and the Suicide Squad made more money than Man of Steel, and they all made profit. Mind you, Suicide Squad is Studio Squad, but it rolled off of the strength of those other two movies. Um, and it had a unique approach to, villains doing good and that kind of thing too. So even though it fell short of the mark, it was still a better movie, in my opinion, than James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Uh, I think that comedy and DC can work, but it has to be with stakes and seriousness. Like, it's not like nonsensical comedy. It's not smutty nonsensical comedy. That doesn't work for DC. It just doesn't. Okay. And it's not that I don't like comedy. It's just what it is. And it has a history. DC has a history of giving you quality movies. The movies that flop. Think about it. Superman Returns, Superman 3, Superman 4, Supergirl. You look at all these wacky films like, Green Lanterns. They didn't do well because DC, Jonah Hex was a serious movie, but it's kind of jokey, serious. Again, didn't do well. So when you talk about DC and the top DC movies, generally speaking, they're movies that people took care, they really took their time to give you a deeper dive into the lore of comic book movies. I think that's just I do for that. So that's what I got for you guys. I am Christ, I am disciple. Hope you guys have a good one. God bless you all. And I'm out. Peace.